Good afternoon, everyone. We have with us on the studio Mr. Jason Pizzo, who is running for State Senate District 38. Good afternoon, Mr. Pizzo.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right. Mr. Pizzo, you are running as a state for the State Senate District 38.
Yes.
Tell us more about yourself.
I am a former prosecutor with the State Attorney's Office. I spent several years there, rising up through the office, beginning with misdemeanor crimes and then juvenile crimes until I reached adult felony court. The last year I was at the State Attorney's Office, I helped form a specialized street violence unit where we primarily focused on cases that have become cold, where they were not able to be solved, and they involved shootings and homicides, especially involving kids in Liberty City, Little Haiti, and unincorporated Dade. And I left there this past November and joined the law firm of Stearns Weaver. I'm a father of two identical twin boys. They are both my pride and joy and my moral compass. They keep me in check. And I spent a lot of time with the children and families in the city, more so than my own family the past couple of years, because I believe that we have an obligation as public servants, whether you're a state attorney, a public defender, an elected official, we have an obligation to provide a safe and secure place for children.
Okay, so why are you running specifically District 38?
It's rather serendipitous. So what happened was the courts redrew the district to make it more fair and to represent and reflect every demographic. So the new district extends from the northeast corner of Miami-Dade all the way down to South Beach. It comes across 395. It cuts through sections of Overtown and Allapattah. And then on the west side of the district comes all the way up 95 and goes as far west in some places as 17th and 22nd Avenues northwest, all the way up until to the county line east of Miami Gardens. So I found that I had been living in 3 different municipalities for several years within this new district.
Okay.
And so my wife says, you live coastal, but you labor in the city. So I had been doing 90, 100-hour weeks trying to help investigate and prosecute these crimes involving kids, and we did other cases, exploitation of the elderly, which is also a big concern and critical right now. And I found that all of my work and all of my passion and my family were right here in the district. And so it was a natural extension for me, innately, to file to run for office because, there's 3 branches of government. You have the judicial, the executive, and the legislative. And for several years, I was part of the executive branch of government, enforcing the laws and prosecuting in front of the judicial branch. And I, like many families and many people watching the news day after day after day with the crime and the blight in our community, I thought that it was time to stop being reactive to crimes and to the ills of society and get proactive and take part in going to Tallahassee and starting to pass legislation that would actually have an effect, that would prevent a lot of the crime and a lot of the housing and job and security and transportation issues that we have right now.
Okay, in terms of integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness, where do you stand on those values?
They are principle, they are critical, and they are the foundation of my life. I have never been even remotely tasked or challenged with my ethics, with my work ethic, ever. I've never been arrested. I've never broken a promise, and that's really important. And one of the things I learned to that point, to that question, which is an excellent one, is when I was working several hours and late into the night. Often, the shootings were 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I learned at its core that what's missing, what's really missing in a lot of our neighborhoods, is that when I was a kid, I was so fortunate I had my father at home. And I wasn't the best child, but I wasn't malicious, but I wasn't the best child. And what I realized was I wasn't so concerned about making him angry at me. I was so concerned about disappointing him, about not making him proud of me. Our family started with very humble beginnings. My father worked very, very hard, instilled in us the work ethic and the importance of just being fair and honest and straightforward. Let people know, even your worst detractors, even the people that don't like you, cannot say that you don't work hard, that you're not honest. And that's the credo that I lived by. And unfortunately, I find myself in 2016 in a very metropolitan area running in a race where that's the same cannot be said of anybody else. And I believe that everyone is owed fair representation, passionate representation, and owed someone, a person, regardless of gender or race and ethnicity. They are owed a person at this critical time when we have such important issues. They're owed a decent, honest, hardworking person. And I found myself, with this overwhelming support of so many different groups, I found myself that I was that candidate. And that's why I'm running.
Running for senator, you know that in Florida, poverty is a big issue. You have the rising cost of living and less income coming in. So how do you plan on tackle this issue?
I believe that, and we have seen that the most important issues that are facing the district right now are all interrelated. So if you begin with gun violence, you have to realize that it's a product of an education system that's not working. In a housing area or a housing situation, that's not working. And even if you want to incentivize the proper jobs and industry to come here and to establish themselves, you can't have transportation networks that are absolutely impossible and so time consuming to get from point A to point B. So you have to improve the safety of public housing, which will lend itself to more civic and community and neighborhood participation with law enforcement, with social services. That will improve and curb our gun violence. And I have a number of plans and proposals as it relates to gun violence and to curb those, enforcing laws that are already on the books. And to your point, Tallahassee is a completely different animal than Miami-Dade County. But we are a huge economic positive to Tallahassee. And we're not getting the money back that's in parity, that's proportionate to what we give. We're not getting a return on the investments that we make to Tallahassee. And so I believe in more inclusionary housing models like they have in the Northeast. You know, just to knock down 700 units somewhere and put up 700 new units is wonderful, and people deserve clean, safe, secure housing. But you have to add some components to it like vocational training. And you have to incentivize law enforcement to be more community policing with the community. And in this very diverse demographic that we have, you see some of the remnants of older family models. And Haitian Americans especially, I like to say, kind of mimic what the Italians and the Irish and the Jewish families did, which was be so concerned with the family core, which is wonderful. And you can have multi-generations, but it's all about improving your position in life for the next generation. It's all about establishing what you might call a legacy interest, leaving it better than you found it, and making sure that education is a top priority, making sure that safety and security and being a decent human being is so important. Unfortunately, the situation that we're in now with a large part of the district is we have to find alternative means to artificiate that to some extent. We need after-school plans, not just programs and dollars being thrown at it. We need what's called wraparound education. We need places for kids to be a Tuesday and Wednesday during the school year at nighttime. Because if you have a single-parent household and the best job opportunity in Miami-Dade County is $15, $16 an hour on the beach, you want mom to be able to take that job, to have clean, safe, and reliable transportation, to be living in a safe housing environment, clean and safe housing environment, but a place for Junior to be studying and eating dinner and being taken care of as a village or as a community. And that's how you see that everything becomes interrelated. Everything is entwined.
Based on your platform, you're talking about the economy, safer neighborhood, better education, less traffic, honest representation, solution for climate change. But what is gonna be the priority of priority?
The first priority to me, as a father, as a husband, and as a resident in this district, is your life. I want to protect your life. And I speak to a lot of students and adults in different municipalities, as I have over the past several years. And I will tell you that even the kids in the beach communities, like Surfside, for instance, their number one fear when I speak to those groups is being gunned down, is being shot or killed by a gun. So it is a universal concern because gun violence is
you
so
know, the
prevalent.
NRA is a very powerful group concerning gun violence.
So that's why that's one of the reasons why I'm very excited about running for this position. Our issue in Miami-Dade County is not an NRA issue. It's not a gun show loophole issue. Our issue are kids, for a number of reasons that we've spoken about and will continue to speak about, are kids killing kids. So a minor under 18 can't possess a firearm legally, so it's per se illegal. And under the Florida statute 790, if a minor is in possession of a firearm, it's a misdemeanor. But social media has taken over and has replaced the playground atmosphere. If you and I were in 3rd or 4th grade together or 6th grade together and we had a problem, we would go out on the playground. We might use fists, right?
Yes.
But we probably became really good friends afterwards.
After that, yeah.
Better friends, actually. Today, you have teenagers who are fighting these fake turf wars over social media and then posting where they are, and then 5,000 other kids see it. And when that happens, you have drive-by shootings. These aren't gang members. These are scared kids who, if they don't have a football program to be at, or if they're not one of the lucky ones to have the whole family core at home, are going to find themselves with a lot of idle time because there are no mentors anymore. There's no more apprenticing in a vocation. Think about it. We're sitting on a TV set, which is effectively a service, a news service. There are hotels and restaurants and bars and law firms and banks and communities, government operations, but we don't really make anything. We don't manufacture anything. We don't produce anything. So what can be said is really being left to the next generation? Does anyone really have a nephew, a son, a daughter, or a niece that they're apprenticing in a trade for the next generation? Not very likely in Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
So we need to incentivize the right companies to come here, tackle education for the sciences and the technology, because that's really where we are and where we need to be. So your life is number one important to me. So I would seek to pass bills and legislation as they relate to guns, especially when a gun is manufactured before it's sold. So the NRA attaches your Second Amendment right after you take possession of the gun. So Jason buys a gun and now I have my Second Amendment right and you can't take my gun. Well, before you get the gun, my plan is to have the gun that's test fired anyway in the factory. They test fire it and make sure that it's operable. Well, it expels a shell casing. And that shell casing has a firing pin mark on the back of it. And that mark that it leaves is more distinct than your human fingerprint. So I would like that photographed the way it is at crime scenes. At crime scenes, we collect shells off the ground. We photograph them and we enter them into a database called NIBIN. And unless I have another crime scene where another shooting or tragedy has occurred, I have nothing to compare that shell casing to.
Okay.
What I'd like to do, which the NRA can't really argue with, is take a photograph and document that shell casing at the factory before the Second Amendment and the NRA get involved and say, listen, Big Brother's not watching. All we're asking is that before it enters the stream of commerce, that we have a photo image of the back of that shell casing. So if they're at crime scene 1, we have something to compare it to.
All right. You have other opponents running for the same seat as
5
you.
other opponents in the primary.
So,
yes.
but what sets you apart from these opponents?
Candidly, ethics, passion, and dedication. There are 5 other opponents, and every one of them, unfortunately, if I wasn't in this race, I would take a look at the number of opponents that there are and the backgrounds of the opponents, and I would be disappointed. I would not be excited or enthusiastic about any of them. Because there is such a diverse demographic, there are socioeconomic issues, there are environmental issues, there are transportation and infrastructure issues, education, housing. There's so many, and there are a few candidates that have either demographic pockets of influence or of support, and that there are subject matter pockets of influence. One of my opponents is a school teacher, a 26-year veteran school teacher, which is wonderful, but that's one component of the race. Another opponent is really just all about Miami Beach and nowhere else. And that's not what the district is. You know, we finally have fair districts with an equal representation of African Americans as well as Haitian Americans and Caucasian and Hispanic. And quite frankly, Daphne Campbell is one of the opponents who has promised a lot and shouted loudly and says some amazingly bizarre things, but this election is about picking the right person and just enough is enough. Enough is enough with the guns, with the lies, with the exaggeration of the truth, to say it nicely.
Some of your opponents, so
Okay.
they were talking about your voting history as a citizen yourself.
Okay.
So, and now you're a candidate. So we have our viewers watching.
Sure.
And what would you like to say to them? So now you're looking for their votes. And then
Absolutely.
what would you like to say to our viewers?
What I would like to say is the truth.
Okay.
When judges run for office, they have to be nonpartisan. They don't belong to a party.
Okay.
And as a freshman prosecutor, I adopted the same philosophy. As the cases became more serious, I didn't want someone who was facing life in prison to wonder what my politics were,
Okay.
to wonder if I was beholden to one party or to another. I wanted to remain completely fair and impartial. So my values have always been Democrat. My life and my passion and the charities and the committees and communities that I've worked and labored in have always been democratic values about fairness and equal representation for all and lifting up those that need it most. I did not vote in the 2012 general election for a very simple but scary reason.
Okay.
A few days before that election, two people that I was, two people were found, let me work backwards. Two people, young kids, were found in my car that had crashed after being used in armed robberies in Miami Beach. That car was taken from my home when I was home with my wife and my two kids.
Okay.
The kids inside of that car 3 days before election were defendants in my courtroom that I was prosecuting. So if you work from front to back, I had kids in the system being so brazen as to come to my home with my family and my children. And they committed armed robberies in my car that they stole and crashed and later found out who it was. On election night, my family was not in Florida. I had pulled my boys out of our home in their pajamas, barefoot, put them in a friend's car, and flew them up to New Jersey to be with their cousins.
Okay.
I lived in 3 different hotels for 6 weeks. I will tell the audience and you that the elections of November 6, 2012 were the last thing on my mind. It goes back to my point that I said to you when you said, what are my priorities, legislative priorities? It's your life, and then it's your health, and then it's the environment and education. But I was protecting the life of my children and my family first, and I apologize for not voting
Being able
in
to
the
do
general
that.
election. And much has been said that there were a number of special elections, but I've moved within the district. I've moved multiple times because I was most concerned about the safety of my children. I had to pull them out of their school. They never returned to the same school. We never returned to the same home. And when people say, he doesn't understand our situation, I've lived it. So I've been very fortunate. I worked hard and I did well, but I've been also the victim of the threat and the terror of worrying about your loved ones being killed while being a prosecutor.
Right.
I believe that makes a unique qualification for me.
So what is your message to the viewers?
My message to the viewers is very simple. You don't have to be a Jason Pizzo fan. You don't have to love Jason Pizzo, but you all deserve ethical, honest, fair representation. Someone with an incredible work ethic. I'm smart. I'm honest sometimes to a fault, I've been told. I need a little bit better of a filter. But even standing alone, if the viewers don't believe in the Jason Pizzo idea, you have to look at the opponents and realize that enough is enough. The Daphne Campbells with the Medicare fraud in the family and the mortgage fraud and the IRS liens, it reflects so poorly on our community. And I think everyone agrees it's enough is enough. And my other opponents with just the simple message is, if you look at me relative to everybody else, everybody needs to raise their own children, so to speak, and get their financial house in order and get their ethical house in order. Okay? And at this point, it's about the best person for the job. The endorsements that have come for our campaign, and I've never run for office before, the endorsements have been wonderful and overwhelming. the Haitian American Progress PAC. The Miami Times just today came out with their endorsement of our campaign. South Florida Caribbean News, SCIU, the local Teamsters. It's been wonderful. And the elected officials, Representative Barbara Watson, Mayor Enid Wiseman, Mayor Philip Levine of Miami Beach, and over a dozen other seated elected officials who realize that I'm the best crossover candidate for every demographic, for every geographic location, and I'm the one that can go to Tallahassee and coalesce and get bipartisan support for issues that affect not just your life, but your health, the environment, and the education.
Once again, a reminder of the election date.
Early voting began August 15th. It goes all the way through until August 20th, but Election Day is August 30th. And I encourage everyone just to get out and vote, and especially value your vote. Voting is a right. It is a right that you hold, and no one should influence you to do anything that doesn't reflect what's in your heart to do. And hopefully it's for Jason Pizzo, because I seek to represent everybody.
All right, Mr. Pizzo, thank you for stopping by.
Merci.
And good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, my name is Ernst Robillard. Until next time.